بسم الله، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اليوم جايب لكم لعبة اسمها تومز واز الاون. اتوقع اسمها كذا، اتوقع. طبعا اللعبة لعبت على البلاي ستيشن 3 وعلى البلاي ستيشن فيتا. اللعبة نازلة من زمان، بس من الالعاب الحلوة كذا، الخفيفة الرايقة. طيب، انقصرنا على صوت اللعبة. هلا. طيب، نبدأ نلعب
giving the game that
نجربها.
name immediately started a story going.
طيب،
And
طبعا انتم
that had in
تشوفون
lots of
طريقة
ways.
اللعبة،
So this is step
بتشوفونها
one, side to side
قدام
movement.
نلعب.
If you're a platforming game fan, it should not present too much of
يلا.
a challenge to you.
مشكلة
But here it's
اللعبة،
really just about
طبعا انا ما
easing the player
اذكرها
into
من
the way the world works.
لان من زمان لعب
Seeing
على البلاي
gravity
ستيشن
for the
3.
first time,
بس
understanding
مشكلة
how
اللعبة
falling
الى الان،
feels, and then
اتذكر
actually kind
المشكلة
of
والى الان
talking about that in
اشوفها،
the voiceover
ان
to
المطور هو
translate
يطور
further.
اللعبة
It's also introducing
كأنه يطورها لوحده
the
حمار.
idea of a
يعني
narrated story,
مرة
and it's
اوكي،
introducing
لازم
stories.
في
So we
البداية
hopefully kind of do
يكون
a few
سهلة،
things here at the same time.
بس مو
Jumping
للدرجة هذه عاد.
had to be right.
يعني
It's
شوفوا كيف.
kind of the main way you interact in this game, obviously. I did a lot of research. I got kind of obsessive about it. It took
مرة
me,
في
I was
البداية
still
سهلة.
fiddling with the jump
يعني
physics, I
اوكي،
think, about
كل لعبة
3
لازم
weeks
تكون
before I
سهلة في
launched the
البداية،
game.
بس مو للدرجة
So
هذه يا
this
اخي.
is a challenging jump. So this is a jump where the player
لا،
can fail
وحاط
at it.
تعليمات بعد.
So there's a gap. But the
طيب لا
whole point of
دقيقة
this level
شلون؟
is to
اديني
introduce
كذا.
the idea of jump distance
يمدي.
and the fact that you
لا
can
والله
fall
ما
from a
يمدي.
jump, but hopefully in kind of a safe
طبعا اللعبة
environment.
انت تلعب
So here you can't be
بمربع او
dummy. I played
بمكعب
a lot of
او
Uncharted
بمستطيل
before making this
لين
game.
توصل للنهاية.
It's kind of inspired by that
طبعا
kind of
كل
those kind of
كل
scripted
مربع
moments
او
in
كل
games.
مستطيل له
I didn't
ميزة،
do as many in the game as I kind of expected to at the start.
ولازم
Kind of there's a few
كلها
reasons for that.
تتعاون مع بعض. يعني
I guess
لازم
the
كلها
main one
تكون
was that once the player's
كلها
kind of
متكاملة لبعض، ما تقدر
so
تاخذها
this is
وتدعس بها
a subtle
للنهاية.
one, but it's kind of
لازم كل
important.
واحد
And I know I talk
يكمل
a lot
الثاني.
about game design introduction. This is
حلو.
by the way,
ما
this
ينفع
isn't
كذا.
like innovative in any way. This is Mario. This is every game you ever played. But I think it's kind of interesting to go through the steps. So here, here is kind of we're extrapolating on precision. It's
طبعا اللعبة كنت من
we've done it
غلطان
in the
فيه
previous
على
level,
على
we've
طبعا
maybe
اكيد على
good.
البلاي ستيشن
And here we're kind of queuing up a few of
طبعا
those. So if you fail
انا
at
العبها على
one,
البلاي ستيشن 4.
you can
طبعا اكيد
actually
هي
force
على
yourself
الاكس
to go
بوكس،
back a couple of steps on the
وانا
progress.
شفتها على
This is
الايباد
kind of the
قبل، بس
first
ما
time
ادري
it's
اذا لا
challenging,
موجودة او لا.
which is important, but it's important as well that it's not overwhelming.
لا
It's still
تبين.
very early days. I haven't yet shown you the kind of the differentiating
لا
mechanics on this.
لا.
So it's again just kind of
طيب
bringing
حلو.
players up to speed with stuff and starting to show
أوبا.
them how a game would work in this space.
لازم نطلع شوي كذا، وين نقفز. حلو.
I didn't add respawning to the game until about a month before release.
طيب خلاص يلا.
It's a classic example of something that
اللعبة ما ادري هي من مطور مستقل او استوديو، ما ادري صراحة، بس اتوقع انه من مطور مستقل.
It's a weird one, the lighting. I
طيب
kind of
حلو.
I didn't have lighting at
طب
one
وين
stage, there
النهاية
wasn't light.
هنا؟
Then there was sounding a bit biblical. But as it went
هذه
on, I kind of
فوق.
added that in. Initially, I was doing them by hand for every level, and basically this procedural system kind of came out of laziness. I didn't want to do that anymore, and weirdly, as a side effect of that,
يمدينا؟
it
لا
was
والله ما
cool,
يمدي.
and the shadows moved and could be kind of
يمكن من
related
هنا.
to placement of objects, placement of characters. And it was good. It's actually faked because the
أكيد
game was
إنها
made in
من-
free
أيوة.
Unity. I didn't have any shadows within the game.
يمدينا على
kind of proper. So what I did
المربع
was
اللي
these
هناك
are
على
they're kind of
اليسار.
stretched rectangles.
نجرب.
So I place corners of
لا
rectangle
لا.
at each corner which the shadow is projecting from, and then kind of stretch them off into the distance. Any coder listening to
حلو
this
يلا.
just lost all respect for me because that's the most
نجي
wasteful way to possibly
مسرعين.
do this.
اوبا حلو
But
حلو.
it kind of worked, and yeah, we just went with it. And it's one of the things that people seem to like. So yeah, fortunately it's rectangles, so it can
حلو
be this.
أخيرا.
Okay, so this is the moving platform corridor. This was an attempt to bring in something that's going to become very
طيب.
important in a very short amount of time. The moving platforms.
لا
It's
لا على
really hard to
بالي
introduce moving
بطبر
platforms
سريع
because
سريع.
moving platforms move, and that makes them challenging and makes them a kind of a complex interaction. So what the corridor here allows me to do
سالفة.
is introduces the idea that sometimes the ground moves, but in a way that doesn't actually kind of impact you too much, and won't cause you hopefully to get too stressed out. People seem to like it. It's kind of a bouncy castle level. People tend to have
لا
fun
لا
as
إيه
they
حلو.
move through it, which is quite cool. and yeah, it looks interesting, and hopefully it just kind of introduces the concept.
حلو. لا لا تبغي تطيح والله. أخيرا.
This is the most important level in the game. This is the point where I basically get to the point. And arguably I should have done it a little bit sooner. However, this is where it is.
طبعا كل شوي بيزيد لك مكعب، يعني كل بعد مثلا 5 مراحل أو 10 مراحل يزيد لك مكعب. طيب. طبعا زي قلت مشكلتها في البداية انه مرة سهلة لدرجة ان تستهبل علي يعني.
As you move
لا
you're
لا.
moving through trigger boxes. If you don't
لا
make
أبغى
any trigger
تطيح.
boxes are basically spaces you jump into or move into, and they cause something in the game to happen. So as you move up as Thomas, you're hitting these trigger boxes.
ما يمديني. طيب نروح للحمراء.
But as a really weird coincidence, I got one of the timings wrong. So that as you moved up, there's a certain point where it looks like you
كيف
jump
انجز؟
somewhere. You jump to it, and the wall flies out and hits you in the face. It's kind of a funny moment, and I did it, and I thought it was funny, and it felt kind of organic. And I took it to when I started showing.
طيب ما
the
يمدي
games to
كذا.
people, it happens
في
to
واحدة هنا
everyone.
ما
It's a
شفتها.
weird thing that it seems to catch everyone out, even though there's nothing forcing you into it. 90% of the time.
طيب نرجع
people hit in the face.
البرتقالية.
And most of the time they laugh. So I left it in, and I'm really happy with it. Actually, it's one of those nice little coincidences that worked out really well.
حلو حلو حلو.
Steps. Everyone loved the steps. They didn't actually, and it's probably my biggest design regret in the game.
طيب شو بعد؟
Steps basically are kind of
بعد
obstacles
ما
that you have to
يمديني.
jump over by kind of piling up a few characters in order to get through. That's fine. The problem with steps
زي ما قلت
is that
لكم
you
ان
have to do
كل
that
مكعب
repeatedly.
يعتمد
You have
على
to
الثاني.
essentially
مو
solve the
دائما
same
بس
puzzle over
الأغلب.
and over again in a sequence.
لا لا.
And there's just 2 or 3 too many times I do that in the whole game, and it's frustrating to players.
حلو.
Yeah, it sucks. I went through and I
عندي.
removed quite a few of them.
أرجع.
So if you're annoyed,
لا لا لا.
you would have been more annoyed if I'd left it how it was. So yeah, it's a shame. I think there's some which this level's a great example of.
البداية اللعبة في البداية مملة.
This map was always very similar to this, but there was one major kind of design difference was that the stepping stones at the bottom of the screen
طيب ما يمديني لازم أجيب هذه.
had no wall below them, so they were floating over water, which meant that you could fail about 8 or 9 times here, causing you to get very frustrated and angry. And it wasn't a soft fail where your character fell through and you got back up and carried on.
طيب وين
It
في؟
was a
هنا في
cruel,
واحدة.
harsh fail that reset the level.
الثانية وينها الثانية؟
And my playtesters hated it. So this is a great example of the kind of thing that to me was invisible because I understood how the characters moved and I was made
طيب
for
وين
playing
البرتقالية؟
all the
حطينا
time. To
البرتقالية.
me
لا
it was a really
هذه
easy
الحمراء
sequence of
حمراء.
stepping stones that
طيب
you can
نودي
get through
البرتقالية
first
الحين.
time every time. But once I put it in front of playtesters, I
خلنا
got emails
ندز.
from people saying it was taking them like 45 minutes to get through this level because of that problem. So just sticking a wall underneath, kept the
لا.
water because it looked nice, but the sticking a wall underneath
خلنا
really kind
ندز
of
مرة
helped. It just
ثانية.
smoothed people through. People are still working out the game at this stage, and I don't want to kick them too much in the face. I've already hit them in the face
حلو.
with a wall.
ما يمديني بعد. طيب كذا أيوة. حلو.
Danny really, well, I should have mentioned Danny a little bit sooner. He just does so much. It's a
طيب.
long story that I've told lots of places, but basically I wrote the story for him. I was trying to find a voice that would suit the game,
قربها.
and I was a big fan of his writing and his kind of audiobooks.
طلع خلنا.
radio
لأن
stuff
هذا
and
شوي
everything he
صار.
does.
طيب.
And I wrote the part kind of with his voice in mind.
صرف.
And then I tried to
أيوة.
find people who could do it, and no one could do it. And then I got drunk and emailed him.
يمديها البرتقالية.
which was a bit
والله
of a shock.
شكل
So I'm
يمديها.
really chuffed. He did
فنيت
an awesome
بس
job.
ناخذ.
He's been really cool with the game.
عيدها مرة ثانية.
He's talked about it. He's been lovely, and he's just a really
آه
nice
يمديها
chap. He's
كفو.
also really fast. I'm recording this after
طب ورا ما
recording some
تدخل
stuff
هذه
with Danny, and
لازم
he
أروح من
just,
فوق.
he's amazingly quick at what he does. I'm doing a much much worse job.
طيب
And the people in the booth are getting
برتقالية يمديها تدخل؟
at this point.
اي والله يمديها. طيب حلو. حلو حلو. حلو. طيب حلو حلو. اللعبة شوي تحس الاستجابة فيها بطيئة، يعني ترى 6 اشوفه زادون مستطيل. طيب
He's insecure in a weird way. I'm not entirely sure why he is, but he is.
طيب ما يمدي.
And that leads him to kind of be dishonest and narcissistic, which I think a large number of creative people will associate with.
لا أيوة كذا.
And he's yeah, so he's a really interesting character. I like the way he grows. I like that his journey as he goes on, and I like this is another level actually from the original Flash game, which obviously I tweaked and
شوفوا مرة على طول صرنا 17 على طول.
the idea of confined spaces.
طيب وش الحال؟ طيب وين هذولي؟ هذه
spaces having multiple characters with different abilities kind of hopefully feels kind of empowering, feels like you can do anything and get anywhere. Putting them into a confined space kind of becomes an interesting kind of jumble. They get in each other's way, they trip over each other. There's a nice little bit of narration that kind of highlights that stuff. But it was just something really cool to play with. The other thing, this level exists solely to allow the player to feel their way into John. This is a chance for you to basically make him jump properly for the first time. Hopefully the constraints in the last level, that feels awesome. And I actually use the word just to push you in case that's not how you're feeling. You should, it's a very good game. And then yeah, so you've now got access to this awesome jump, and you can do what you feel.
البرتقالية شو هالمحل؟ البرتقالية ما في أمل تطبر هالمسافة. تعال داز ووقفز.
John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him.
طيب وش تسوي ذي؟
His new allies.
حلو.
From the sympathetic expression he'd practiced in the mirror all these years.
ما يمديها. نجيب الحمراء. لا طيب حلو. الحمراء مرة ثانية. طيب حلو. الصفراء. نجيب البرتقالية لأن هي أقل وحدة، يعني ما بطيئة، ما تقدر تقفز، متعبة. ما يمديها. طيب نجيب الحمراء. طيب ما يمديها بعد الحمراء. طيب نجيب الصفراء. طيب الحمراء يمديها تدخل من هنا؟ لا ما يمديها.
I think this is the this is getting very self-deprecating, but I think this is the weakest level in the game. I came very
طب هذه بعيدة مرة.
this is where the
نجيب
staircase
الصفراء.
repetition kind of becomes, well, boring.
حلو.
I did do a lot. I
حتى
shifted
الصفراء
things
ما عندي إياها.
around, kind of varied the step sizes and gaps and to add variety.
طيب نجيب برتقالية
but
معها.
it's a lot better than it was, but it was not. It's the
حلو
one
حلو.
that when I'm watching Let's Plays, and I'll talk a bit more about Let's Plays in a bit, but the way it's kind of the one that I fast forward through on the Let's Plays.
الحمراء ما
I
يمديها
find
إلا
it
والله يمديها الحمراء.
very slow. I don't know. That might just be over familiarity, but I
طيب
don't
نجيب
like it
الصفراء.
slow. Have fun with it though, and I'll see you on the next one.
طيب والحمراء هنا جنبها. بعد ما يمديها. طيب شو الحل؟ شلون؟ ما إلا نجيب الحمراء فوق. دقيقة وخر الحمراء شوي. أيوة فوقها. أيوة كذا. نجيب الحمراء مرة ثانية. يمديها تقفز البرتقالية المسافة. لا والله ما في أمل. شك معنا إلا الصفرة. نجيب الصفرة. مرة ثانية. يا أخي لا البرتقالية والله هي بثرة. لا لا حتى لو الحمراء ما يمديها تنقز. البرتقالية دي ما يمديها على أي شيء. طب شو اللي حطها ما أدري. ما لها أي فائدة. ولا يمديها بعد على ذي. يا ليل. اصبر.
He didn't mind them so much either. The red one,
نزل الصفراء. ايوه
had a
كذا.
charming way of
بسرعة
rewarding every
بسرعة
time he
بسرعة.
jumps.
ايوه. لا 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 يا اخي. شكل لازم ارقي معها الحمراء. صب بسرعة. ايوه. لا 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 البرتقالية. لا لا. ما مدانا. أخيرا. أشك صراحة أنها يمديها. أي والله ما في أمل بعد. طيب حلو. طيب نجيب الحمراء.
The angry orange one was less immediately likable, but his
لا لا
unremitting
لا.
cynicism and
لا
taunting
وخري.
amused John.
هذه يبغى لها الصفرة بعد. حلو. طيب نجيب الحمراء. تكفي الحمراء. لا والله ما تكفي. طيب الصفراء. طيب حلو. أخيرا.
So this is the last. This is actually the last level of the demo. So it's kind of important for that reason. But the kind of the big design lesson here.
طيب وش
and you'll
سالفتها
notice-
ذي؟
I guess
طب
like
وين
the
الصغير؟
lessons are
ناقصة
slowing
واحدة.
down at this point. But the big lesson here is that
ناقص
there's a temporary
أيوة هذه
portal
تحت
success. So previously all the portals
طيب
have
حلو.
sat on a static ground. So you queue someone up, you queue someone up, you queue someone up. With this one, you have to finish this level by having Thomas falling through that portal.
البرتقالية
And it's
لازم
again, it's hopefully it's kind of safe. If you
لازم
miss your
تطق
timing,
أيوة
you
حلو.
get him through early.
ما
you
يمديها
always
ما
catch back
يمديها.
up with yourself, so it doesn't punish you if you don't get it immediately. But it's something
نجيب
I really
هنا.
want to do later on, and there's quite a few places where I
نجيب
play
الحمراء.
with this idea. So yeah, it's that basically. It's
تعال
a way of
تعال.
introducing that, and hopefully kind of hints at the possibilities if you're playing the demo of kind of where the game can continue on from there.
They were there to extend John's reach, to make his performance even more impressive.
طيب حلو.
John liked the thought. He decided to keep them.
لا نسيت أحط الصفراء. لا. طيب حلو يلا.
Claire is all about the setup. To buy the fact that she actually thinks that swimming is a superpower, you kind of have to set her up before that as feeling weak. And Claire's not weak. She's not a weak character. She's not rubbish at jumping either. That's something she says. She's on a par with a lot of the other characters. But that insecurity, hopefully,
الحين واحدة
brings
بس.
you to her, and you're with her at the
طيب
point where she
هي
realizes she
فايدتها
has that superpower.
الزرقاء.
You feel excited because you want a nice thing to happen to that character.
أو والله ثقيلة.
Not pity, but kind of a sensitivity towards.
طيب وش أسوي وين
What's
أروح؟
really interesting with Claire is in a lot of the reviews and the kind of the chatter about the game that happens online, people say
طيب
that
النهاية
Claire is
وينها؟
fat and that she's
أوه.
insecure
والله
about
بطيح في
being
الماية
fat.
بطيح في الماية.
Which is really odd.
لا لا
'cause
لا
I never
لا.
thought of Claire as fat. She's big because she has to carry characters
آه
later. That's
والله
the kind of
كويس
design
وضعه كيف في
concern.
الماية عادي.
And at no point does the script mention her weight or even that she has a physical
طيب شو أسوي طيب؟
insecurity.
ما أقدر لا أروح لا يمين ولا
And
يسار.
that's kind of weird and odd, but it's
وقف.
also
جد.
absolutely awesome because if played
والله حلوة
so
الزرقاء
exactly
حلوة.
the same way as with John, I kind of really enjoyed the idea of introducing a swimming character and then having a level that you couldn't
طيب
swim in.
وين النهاية؟
So there's that, and
هذه
just me
هي.
being cheeky
أوكي.
again, basically. But the big lesson here is the idea of getting Claire to carry another character. So there's one point right at the start of the level you have to get John to carry Claire.
طيب
You have
حلو.
to, there's
وين
no way to beat the
الزرقاء؟
level without doing it, which was cool.
صدق الزرقاء ما لا يعني نرجع صفرة مرة ثانية.
You can do it over the stepping stones straight after.
لا أطيح لا حلو رجعونا هنا حلو. طيب يمديها حتى ما يمديها تقفز فوق الصفرة يعني ما لها إلا أجيب زرقاء هنا. أيوة ومشها. حلو عشان ما أقدر أنا أعكس. حلو والله الزرقاء حلوة.
I said it was useful later on. It's useful immediately after, which is this level, which is the payoff where you carry characters back and forth.
لا
I also really
يعني
like
لازم
the
أجيب
whole,
الزرقاء
box
وأنقل
chicken brain
ذولي
logic
سوا.
puzzle, and it's kind of Thomas's little nod to that.
حلو.
It's just something that people hopefully kind of will work out and kind of start to see what Claire can do and start making
طيب ننقل واحدة
start
واحدة.
planning out with that ability in mind in later puzzles.
طيب نرجع للزرقاء نوديها مكانها.
This is probably the most showy level. This is epic. This is the one that always goes in the trailer. I stole Rain from the method for doing Rain from Quick Fingers.
طيب حلو شو أسوي؟ أوه تطيح.
Now fortunate enough to work with. And it's
الموية تمشي الحين.
This is much like
طيب
those
حلو.
platforms earlier on. This is kind of one of those big
جيب الحمرا
semi-scripted
بسرعة
sequences because
بسرعة
the pace
أيوة.
is defined by the water, so therefore I know that if a player is surviving, they are playing through at a certain speed.
طيب
And
حلو
it's
حلو.
cool. It also builds on the idea of
لا لا
carrying from
لا
earlier,
الزرقاء.
but this time under pressure, so you have to move quicker and you haven't got time to think. And if you try and get Thomas off of Claire, you're going to have.
إيه زرقاء لا.
So there's that as
والله
well.
بغيت أموت.
So it's hopefully kind of a nice way
طيب
of
يمين.
solidifying all the learning the player's done about Claire up to this point.
Was she more the lone Avenger type? She'd like that. The sole hero in a world of rectangles and conveniently placed pools of toxic water.
حلو خلصت على طول.
Steps. I'm so sorry.
طيب
on the
لا
upside,
زين
two things.
ثلاثة.
One, I changed the shape of the steps.
طيب هم تحت
which I
كلهم؟
feel kind of massively
لا
improves them.
تحت تحت. طيب وين أجي مع
And two,
هنا؟
I then sarcastically make a joke
ثم وين
about steps
تحت؟
in the script. So you can laugh with me
طيب
at my lack of design
حط الصفرة
ideas
هنا.
up to this point.
الزرقاء.
The others told Claire that staircases were a bit of a fixture here. Claire wondered why the world made it so difficult.
تطيح من هنا ناخذ لا الزرق باقي زرقاء. ايوه الصفراء. لا طيب ما يخالف ما يخالف. الزرقاء نجيبها تحت. طيب البرتقالية نحطها هنا نمشيهم. رجع هذه. لا يا اخي تلخبطت. وين الزرقاء؟ هذه الزرقاء. لازم اخر الصفراء.
This is one of my favorite levels. What's nice about this level is it breaks the thinking and learning you've done up to this point. So up to this point I've been teaching you Claire for carrying other characters.
طيب وش الحل؟
If I'd not done that, this level would be a lot easier. It's because you've been told to carry characters for every level.
الزرقاء هذه لازم ندبها هنا.
Your automatic reaction to a body of water is to
نحط
jump
الحمراء
clear
هنا.
and pile up all your characters, and that's not the solution. I love
لا
this
ما
puzzle kind of only exists in the head of
الحمراء
the
ما
player.
يمديها ما لها
And
الا
it's great watching
البرتقالية.
you know, let's plays and when I was doing playtesting
يمدي؟
and
لا
taking
والله
to
ما
events
يمدي
and stuff
بعد.
that you actually see people
طيب اجلس اسوي؟
performing the action you've taught them to do of getting the characters onto the
هناك في زر
player
لازم
and
اضغطه.
then realizing that's not the solution, that the solution is much
صدق
simpler
يمكن
than they
الزرقاء
think,
يمديها
and
تروح.
there's only a few places in the game
الزرقاء
I managed to pull
يمديها.
that off, but I'm really happy with this one.
طيب حلو. طيب وين ننزل ذولي عليها؟ خلينا نحاول ننزل على صفراء. طيب خلينا ننزل على الصفراء على طول. ايوه لا تعال فوق. ايوه ما يمديها. طيب ننزل الصفراء. لا طيب بشويش ايوه حلو. طيب نودي الزرقاء الحين.
Man, that music. David came in, well actually he came in pretty early. Basically the original Flash game had no music, and one of the biggest criticisms was that there was no music, there were no sound effects either. So I had to get someone, and I kind of fortunately found David through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. And he did a cool little demo, which is now actually over the end credits.
نوصلهم.
And,
لا ورا طاحوا.
he wrote this amazing
في جدران. والله ما شفته.
I would send him kind of the emotional script for the game of, you know, how the character's feeling, what's the setup here, and he'd work from that and kind of build a piece of music.
لا
halfway through development, I made his life a lot harder because I decided I wanted a randomized procedural system, so you'll never hear the game too obviously loop.
خلينا نحط الحمراء فوقها عشان تسهل علينا.
In interesting ways. And he was really good. He was really good with that. He split up what he'd already
في جدران في واحد ثاني. والله بغيت تطيح.
Used that system really well. So he was really adaptive.
كم في من جدران؟ بس واحد خلاص خلصت.
He's like 14. Well, he's not 14, but he's very young, and it frustrates me how talented he is. I had a really good time working with him, so thank you, David.
طيب حلو. طيب وين في تحت؟ حلو كلها تحت. لازم نجيب الحمرة قبل. طيب حلو حلو. وين الصفراء؟ ايوه. نروح نجيب الزرقاء. حلو حلو حلو
So
حلو.
this is an attempt to do a puzzle with kind of multiple solutions. This again was one of the very early levels I made.
والله هذه شكلها لا مو صعبة مرة بس معناها والله في حقها.
The characters were interacting
طيب وين
correctly
نروح؟
and the platforms were working the way I wanted them to. And it's cool because everyone has a different way of doing it. There's lots of ways of, you know, optimally doing it, but then there's lots of ways of also doing it in kind of cool show-off ways, which is nice. It's a good chance actually to talk about the background.
لازم اجي فوقه يعني ها؟
So
أيوة.
the backgrounds I was going to do kind of, you know, much like the shadows, I was
طيب.
kind of going to do specific
حلو حلو.
level backgrounds, and it was
في شيء هنا ولا لا؟
working alright. It wasn't. They didn't look great. Mainly because I
أتوقع
just
لازم
wanted
نجيب
to spend
الزرقاء
time
هنا.
on this 100 level
طيب.
game, and it just wasn't working. So in the end, I did kind of a procedural system. So they're freeze-framed particle effects. So basically,
طيب
I
نروح نجيب
draw them
الصفراء.
off from a batch of images, place them at different parallax depths, and just go.
الصفراء يا زينها.
Hopefully that kind of gives
نقزتها
everything
عالية
nice
مرة.
texture. I think it brings all the levels together.
طيب
And it means that every
نمشيها.
time you play a level, it looks a bit different, which is fun.
Claire hoped she could get them all across.
لا 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 لا. طيب
John was fully
لا.
aware he could do this alone.
طيب يلا يمدينا
Hoped he'd never
يمدينا على الاكس فيها بطيء، الاستجابة فيها بطيئة. طبعا هي اللعبة كذا سياستها انها تكون بطيئة. طيب خلينا نشوف هاي تلقى فوق ثم ايوه نجي عند هذه. لا لا خلينا نجي في الفوق. ايوه حلو حلو. نجيب الحمرا بعد. طيب الزرقاء. طيب حلو حلو.
This is where I introduced spikes. I needed a hazard. Well, I needed two things. I needed a hazard that that Claire couldn't get past, so not water, basically.
طيب أعطوني
something
واحدة
she
بس.
could get hurt by. And I also needed a hazard I could put on
بغيت
ceilings.
تطيح والله.
I tried. I did actually try to do it in a virtual world. I was like, oh well, it's fine. I'll have upside down water, and it looked rubbish as
طيب خلينا
you would
نقفل.
expect.
ورمت.
So
شو السالفة؟
so the spikes got added.
راسها مدببة.
Just with Claire, just so you can as a player
أفا
learn
بعد.
that Claire is
يعني يلا
actually
سريع
damaged
نقفز.
by them. And it kind of just changes the relationship a little bit between Claire and
حلو
the
حلو.
environment in a
بسرعة
safe
بسرعة
way.
ايوه.
This level's pretty straightforward.
لا 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 حرام يا اخي. لا انزل انزل انزل. ايوه حلو حلو. حلو حلو. اخيرا. طيب ورمت. الجدران بعد في سكاكين. يا ساتر لا المرحلة كلها ملغمة. طيب حلو حلو.
I've got two versions of the commentary for this level.
شلون توحنا
The first version
39
is that
شلون
from
صارت
narrative
21؟
perspective, I needed to
طيب هذه نفس
establish
المرحلة
that
اللي
there
تو.
was
هي والله نفسها.
intelligence to the system you're in, that there were negative forces
طيب ما يخالف ما
to
يخالف.
disrupt
خلنا
the flow
ننقز.
of play in order to make you aware that
شوف
was there.
الرشاقة كيف
So
سريع
which kind
سريع.
of made a lot of sense, and it's kind of something the Matrix does deja vu quite a bit to kind of show you that something's been changed, and that was cool.
نجيب هذا الحين.
The other
ما
version, the
يمديها
honest
لازم
version,
ألقى فوق.
was that I I had a very
حلو.
near deadline in order to take the game to a
طيب خلينا
festival.
تروح ذي. ايوه
I
سريع
hadn't-
سريع
I had
بسرعة
to have
بسرعة.
another level. I don't know why I'd set
يلا
myself
حلو.
a-
لا لا لا
an
لا
actual
طيب
kind of
بسرعة
level
بسرعة
count.
بسرعة
No one
بسرعة.
was judging
لا
me or questioning me. 29 levels.
لا
was
لا
just as
بسرعة
good as
بسرعة
the
كمان
first
تجي.
30 levels, but I did, and this was a nice way of reusing that map. Once I
خلينا
made
نرقى
it,
فوق.
I kind of
نهطب.
assumed I'd always remove it.
لا
But once I
بعد.
made it, I actually thought it was
آه
quite cool. And
عدد
there's a few
جد.
little tweaks, so the moving platform moves a
طيب
little bit faster.
هدوء.
Obviously, Thomas is there. So I kind of liked actually reusing the same
طيب
space
شوي
with
شوي
different
اصبر خلينا
characters
ترقى
as
مرة
kind of
ثانية.
a way of twisting a puzzle. I didn't want to do it too many times in the game because I
لا
thought
بعد.
just feel I was being a bit
طيب شلون
little bit
تو
cheeky
شلون
and
رقيت؟
not making enough content. But it was a nice thing to just do once and to just see how that mixed things up.
لا يا اخي ذا اللي يتكلم والله ازعج امي. خلاص يا اخي. ايوه حلو حلو. لا 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 حرام يا اخي تعبت عشان اوصل. والله ما دريت ان في مسامير فوق. طيب حلو يلا بسرعة 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 ايوه. طيب حلو. طيب شلون الحين؟ طيب وين ودي الحمرا فيه؟ زين رجعوهم من نفسهم. زين زين. طيب حلو. لا خلنا نبعدها عشان تجي الزرقاء الحين. انتبه لا اقبع في الجدران. ايوه حلو 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 كفو.